So Marguerite is married to Geoffrey Gray, and they're this very glamorous couple, and they are, especially Marguerite is really this tastemaker and kind of like some cross between Martha Stewart and Gwyneth Paltrow. And she's a garden designer, that's her passion, and she has these lavish parties, and she's got this gorgeous estate with and has roses, all kinds of different roses. And some of the there's one rose that's named after her called the Marguerite Gray shrub rose. And so Marguerite is a garden designer, but she doesn't execute all of it herself. There's someone, a young woman by the name of Phoenix, who is the kind of chief gardener in charge of the Rosecliff estate. And Phoenix is really the person that does everything. Phoenix is very skilled, very talented. Phoenix doesn't really get any of the credit, though. And Marguerite is very talented, and she has this vision, but she doesn't exactly get her hands dirty with it. So early on in the book, there's a big party. A tree falls and almost crushes Geoffrey Gray, Marguerite's husband. And Phoenix sees it happening. And Phoenix was also aware of everything about this estate. Like she knows it like the back of her hand. This is the young gardener. And she rushes to save Geoffrey Gray from the falling tree because no one else sees this happening. And she pushes him out of the way just in time, and she saves his life. And that bond between Phoenix and Geoffrey kind of ignites this romance. So Phoenix and Geoffrey begin an affair, and then shortly after that, Marguerite dies in a somewhat mysterious way. So it's not clear what happened because that she fell off. It seems she may have fallen off this cliff, but there's a little bit of mystery around it. And so Phoenix becomes more and more entangled with Geoffrey Gray as the story goes on. And then Marguerite's daughter enters into the fray. And Marguerite's daughter is this lookalike Marguerite. She's a dead ringer for Marguerite. And her mannerisms, her behavior, everything about her is like just exactly like Marguerite. So Phoenix is confronted from like multiple sides with Marguerite's presence in the form of the daughter, in the form of the painting, and then in the form of the roses, which seem to be like possessed by Marguerite. So Phoenix can't seem to get away from Marguerite, and then there's some suspicion, and a detective asking questions about exactly what happened with Marguerite's death, and Phoenix was there. No one knows that Phoenix was there. And then I won't say too much more about that because I don't want to spoil it. One thing that happens like far along in the writing process was it occurred to me, oh, the detective and Phoenix know each other from childhood. And Phoenix is a pretty savvy customer. Like she's able to negotiate a lot of different things, but this detective knew her in her worst moments in childhood and in her young adulthood. She'd seen her at her lowest points. And so it's just an unlucky turn of events for Phoenix that this is the woman that happens to be investigating the case, because she kind of loses her cool. We all have those people around us like who can make you lose your cool because they trigger something from the past or whatever. So that's what this detective does for Phoenix. She's like, she knows how to play the whole thing. She's like very, very smart about it. And then the detective kind of unnerves her. I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and maybe I got to the midpoint, and it was all Delta Dawn's point of view. So I tried to like just stay with her and see, I don't know, where's she gonna go? What's she gonna do? And a couple of times I wrote like off in a direction and thought like in this one section, she was going to Texas. And then I wrote this whole thing about her going to Texas, which I totally cut that out of the book and was like, that was not a good detour. I'm returning to something that feels better for Delta Dawn. But when I got to probably the midpoint, I like sketched out a few key scenes that I knew needed to happen. Like I knew it needed to build in a certain way, and I knew and there were certain plot points I needed to hit. And also interest in terms of the relationship between Amelia and Delta, which in the photographer is the key relationship. I knew I needed the bond between them to be really strong in the beginning. So I needed enough scenes to show that bond, and then the tension growing and growing and growing, and the explosion at the end. And similarly, in Marguerite by the Lake, the tension between Phoenix and Taylor's sort of like a stand-in for Marguerite in a sense, because Taylor's the lookalike daughter. She's, from Phoenix's point of view, it's like she practically is Marguerite. So the relationship between Phoenix and Taylor from the get-go was problematic. As soon as Taylor walked into the house, Phoenix and Taylor are both there. There's a lot of tension between them, but it does build and build and build. And so I kind of needed to track that. Like, how is that relationship getting ever more fraught and ever more like difficult and leading to the final explosion?